Okay, so this past weekend, Terence Crawford defeated Canelo Alvarez in a 12-round unanimous decision in a fight that pretty much went exactly how I figured it would go. And that's not to brag, but if you look at my video prior, I said that I felt like Terence Crawford would win the fight, and the reason he would win is because his movement, his foot placement, is primarily his footwork, and his feet would just be too quick for Canelo, and he would just be able to outwork him. And Canelo, whilst he hits hard, I don't think he hits hard enough to make up the difference in foot speed. And it was primarily the footwork and the skill that I was looking at. Whilst Canelo is an extremely skilled fighter, there are certain things that he just does not possess which Crawford does, such as the footwork. And the feet were the main thing. However, the hand speed I also said was one thing. And I also felt Crawford isn't a fighter that relies on speed, so he wouldn't necessarily be lacking a lot when he puts on all that extra muscle. It proved dividend. The reason it wasn't surprising to me, I just knew what Crawford is, and Canelo's a great, he really is, but honestly, Terence Bud Crawford is just the best I've ever seen, and I'm not even include Floyd in this, because as good as Floyd was, Floyd Mayweather never fought guys, or never tested himself the way Bud Crawford has. Floyd Mayweather, for years and years, delayed the Pacquiao fight, and don't get it twisted, he would have beaten him anyway. He never fought Amir Khan when Amir Khan was voted to be his next opponent. There were so many things with Floyd. He wanted everything exactly his way. Bud Crawford, the whole way, has had everything against him. He's consistently been trying to frozen out by Showtime. The Spence fight took a long time, and then when it finally happened, he beat him. He also was able to beat Sean Porter. And then now against Canelo, again, it seemed like the whole crowd were pretty much full of Mexicans, all on Canelo's side, but yet he still got the win. So Bud Crawford's the guy, and he's the best I've seen. However, this does beg an interesting question, however, because you look at the comment section of almost every preview. Look at Sean Porter's preview for the fight. You look at other previews of the fight with other podcasts, and everybody was so convinced that Canelo was just different. Everybody talks about who Crawford had fought, and the old response was, "Oh, but he's not Canelo. He isn't as hard as Canelo. Canelo's different. He's the guy." And it's once again shown size isn't as important as everyone thinks it is. Everybody thinks if you're the bigger man in there, that's going to be the big thing. We have seen now so many occasions guys who are undersized compared to their opponents and have won. God honest truth, I think you'll see the same exact thing with Shakur Stevenson soon. Shakur Stevenson is a little bit like the Bud Crawford. He's not really getting the respect. Everybody knows how good he is. Eventually, he'll fight guys bigger than him and he will beat them, because I believe, in my view, skill trumps size every single time. When there is not a crazy discrepancy. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying size doesn't matter at all. Obviously, Crawford can't go up and fight Anthony Joshua, but Terence Crawford had the skill. He was able to switch stances. He's a fantastic boxer. He's a brilliant counterpuncher. He is a ruthless finisher when he has you hurt. He is so complete that I always felt like the skill level is what would pay dividends from. And I just knew he would get ahead in that fight. Canelo is someone who starts off slow and builds. So does Crawford. But Crawford was able to march a lead. And once he got in the lead, he didn't really have much for him, Canelo, to be honest with you. And it's nothing against what Canelo is. Canelo Alvarez is one of the greats, but he just fought a guy that was just a box of tricks, and he just could not live in there with him. Again, this is one example where it's happened before, where everybody's picked Canelo because he's the bigger man, and once again, Bud proved him wrong. Everybody picked. Let me rephrase. I'm not going to say everybody, but back when Alexander Usyk fought Anthony Joshua for the first time, everybody thought Usyk fought Chisora, got bullied. The same thing's gonna happen with Joshua. He's too small, and once again he's beat him. He also beat Tyson Fury the exact same way. It's ultimately like size doesn't really matter that much. Even if you look at Lomachenko when he went up in weights, I look at the fights against Teofimo and Devin Haney. Those guys were bigger than him and were able to beat him, but they were also very, very skilled fighters. To me, when there's a discrepancy in skill and such a large gap, the size to me becomes irrelevant. You look at Andre Ward and Kovalev, for example. Now, I know in my opinion, Kovalev won the first, and the second fight was dubious because of the whole low blow thing. But to me, Ward was winning that fight anyway, and would have gone on to win. Andre Ward is much smaller than Kovalev. He was super middleweight at one point. But Kovalev and Ward, skill-wise, to me, it's not close. Crawford and Canelo, whilst it's not a crazy wide gap, because Canelo is as skilled as a boxer we have seen, it's not the same. It's just not the same. Even like when Errol Spence fought Crawford, Spence is supposed to be seen as the bigger man because he was a career welterweight, whereas Bud had come from 135 to 140 down, then to 147, whereas Spence had never ever fought at those weight classes. And to me, it showed in that fight. Crawford did kind of physically bully him at times. I do think they made a mistake, Spence and his team, by sort of letting him grow into the weight class. If you were going to get him, you wanted to get him quite early on. But irrespective of all that, I think what we've seen is size isn't as important as we all make it out to be, and it's proven that the amount of multi-time weight world champions we see is a perfect example of how size really doesn't have the impact that I think we all like to pretend it does. We all like to pretend that these guys are big and they're just going to bully guys, but honestly, skill is forever be the most important thing in boxing. If you are a much better boxer than somebody else, it will make a massive difference. If you look at like a Manny Pacquiao and Ricky Hatton, God rest his soul, was I would say the bigger man out of the two, but Manny Pacquiao lit him up because again the skill, the speed. Obviously Pacquiao had other physical gifts, but these are just the things that I think matter, and I don't think that size is as big an issue as you think. Like I look at Kell Brook and Gennady Golovkin when they fought all the way back in the day. Gennady Golovkin beat Kell Brook, but not because he was necessarily a bigger man and bullied him. He just hit hard, and he hit hard, so hard that he ended up breaking Kell Brook's eye socket. These are just things that happen. Again, skill is the thing that I always look at, and to me, it's what I believe was the biggest factor in this fight with Crawford and Canelo. Size does not matter. Now, I'm going to contradict myself here, because obviously it does partially matter, but ultimately, when there's fighters of a certain weight category, I don't believe it's as big as people make out. I've never seen a fight in top level boxing that was purely determined and measured on size. Even I look at someone like Tyson Fury, who uses his size and his weight to his advantage. Against Deontay Wilder, he didn't win because of his size per se. He won because he was aggressive and beaten to the punch the second time and the third time as well. And he also is just a better boxer than Deontay Wilder. He's more highly skilled. These are things that matter, and they'll always matter. The skills is the most important thing, and again, Bud Crawford is as skilled as you get, and that is why, for me, I love fighters like Shakur, like Jaron Ennis as well. Guys who don't just rely on the speed and the power. The speed and the fast and the athletic guys, but ultimately, their boxing acumen is just on another level, and it's the same with Bud Crawford. And honestly, I was a great win for him. I always was confident he'd win the fight, like I said, and I predicted him to win the fight, but it was just a complete masterclass, to be honest, from him. And yeah, for Bud now, I don't know what he does really. I look at the bigger picture. He could fight somebody like a Jaron Ennis, but I don't really see the point in the fight as much as I would love to see it from a boxing purist point of view. There's no challenge for him there. They're talking about maybe Benavidez has been mentioned, but I don't really see the point in that fight. Benavidez is, again, this is where the size may come into it, because Benavidez is a big guy, and he's very long, and he's like 6 foot something, and obviously when he comes into the fight on the night, he's not light heavyweight at the moment, so he's going to be a lot bigger. So I'm not really sure about those ones, but I do think that with the Bud, I maybe retire, just have one last fight in Omaha and call it a day, because I don't really see what more you can do at this point. You could fight Canelo again, but I don't know if the interest would be there like it was the first time round. And yeah, I don't know. There's not really many other fights out there, really. I mean, ages ago, the Spence rematch was carried around, but then that never went anywhere. Virgil Ortiz is there, but again, there's not really much challenge for Bud. So I guess it's interesting to see what happens and what comes of this. But yeah, Bud Crawford, though, to me, he's the best I've ever seen. I feel like he's that guy, and I just think it's just shown again. Size doesn't matter; it is skill that matters. Usyk and Bud Crawford are both examples of two fighters who are the two best pound for pound fighters in boxing, and two fighters who have both come from lower weight classes and have bullied those bigger than them. Usyk came up from cruiserweight and has bullied the likes of Joshua and Tyson Fury and Daniel Dubois. Terence Crawford has come up from 135 to 140 to 147 and has bullied the likes of Errol Spence and Canelo Alvarez, guys who are seemingly bigger than him. And I think he'll continue to do so. And I think if he fights again, Bud's just the guy. His mentality is just different. And yeah, a great fight though, and a great night. And I feel like it was a fight that was definitely well worth all the hype. I feel like skill-wise, it was one of the most brilliantly fought boxing fights I think we have seen in a long, long time. The skill level between the two of them was crazy. Even Canelo, whilst he didn't perform like he could, ultimately he still put on a decent show, and I just think he just couldn't handle Bud. But great fight nonetheless. Let me know what you think. Do you feel like size does matter? And I'm just chatting about the skill, but I just think skill will always trump size, and it will be like that to the end of time. But just my view. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.